Hello and welcome to the first edition of Showtime Sports Squabble. Now, one of the biggest debates in all of sports is LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. But what about Steph Curry or James Harden? Now, I know that you think James Harden's the best player or best point guard, better than Steph Curry right now, and he's coming off a MVP season. So, what makes you think James Harden's is better than Steph Curry right now?
Well, Tyler, there's a lot of reasons I think James Harden is better than Steph Curry, and there's even more that make me know that James Harden is better than Steph Curry. Listen, Sam over here, huge Warriors fan, huge Steph Curry fan. Going to be a fun debate today, but you have to be realistic, Sam. Look at what Steph Curry has around him compared to what James Harden has around him. Steph Curry, his entire career, just about, at least since he's become an MVP, has been surrounded by just about an all-star cast every single season. You got guys like Klay Thompson who can just shoot the lights out, as you would probably agree. Kevin Durant, two-time NBA Finals most valuable player, an NBA most valuable player in 2014 himself, four-time scoring champion, NBA Rookie of the Year, 9 All-Star appearances. Kevin Durant, in his own right, is one of the best players, top 3 or 4 in the NBA at least. You have DeMarcus Cousins now, one of the best bigs in the league. You have Draymond Green. Meanwhile, look at what James Harden has. He has a banged-up CP3, Clint Capella, who's been out all season, and Eric Gordon. I mean, come on.
Okay, well, see, that's how we know that Steph Curry is better than James Harden. The first thing that no one over here is going to argue against Steph Curry is that his team is just too good. But I'm here to tell you right now, that is not even necessarily the case, because without Steph and Curry, this team is not that good. In fact, earlier this season, when Steph went down with an injury, the Warriors couldn't even come up with a winning record. That's with Kevin Durant, that's with Klay Thompson, that's with Draymond Green. These guys are all-stars. Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson are perennial all-stars. Draymond's been there a couple times before, and these guys still cannot figure out how to have a winning record without Steph and Curry. And if that's not evidence enough, if you look at the field goal percentage across the team and the individuals with and without Steph and Curry this year, the numbers don't lie. The whole team as a whole, 51% field goal shooting with Steph and Curry in the lineup, 48 without, 40% from 3, 33 without him. Let's look at individual players. Kevin Durant, right, one of the best players in the league, without Steph and Curry.
Hold on 1 second. Do you think Steph Curry is better than Kevin Durant?
Absolutely,
overall?
And that's what I'm here to prove right now as well.
Okay.
Kevin Durant, with Steph and Curry on the court, 52% field goal shooting percentage, 40% from 3. Now you take Steph off the court, that's down to 46% field goal percentage and just 34% from 3. Those are big differences right there. I can get into Klay, Draymond, Iguodala, all of them have significantly worse percentages without Steph and Curry than when they do. And also, here's another point to prove that Steph and Curry is better than Kevin Durant. With Kevin Durant on the court per 100 possessions, the Warriors are plus 9.7. That's incredible. That's MVP type of numbers right there. One of the best players in the league, right? Steph and Curry per 100 possessions, plus 15.9. That is, so we're talking about, as you said yourself, Kevin Durant, the top 3 or 4 player in the league
Easily.
at the worst.
Easily.
Plus 9.7 points. Steph and Curry, better than Kevin Durant, better than James Harden, plus 15.9. Those numbers don't lie. That's 8 points better per possession.
So let me ask you this. If you truly believe that if Klay Thompson, say, for example, was hurt or not on the team, he was traded off, just he's not in the scenario. Draymond Green, take away Boogie Cousins now, who I know is only there for 1 year, so I'm not really factoring him into a lot of this because they've won without him. And then you take away Kevin Durant, you're telling me that the Warriors would still be at least contenders, one of the top teams in the very difficult Western Conference.
Absolutely.
Because look at James Harden.
Steph changes everything, though. That's my point, is James Harden is putting up these crazy numbers. He's going on these incredible scoring streaks, and there's no denying that. But Steph doesn't even have to do that because he relies on his teammates around him. The way that the defense gravitates towards him, he'll have 3 or 4 guys looking at him per possession, and he will find the open man. Now, I'm not saying James Harden can't pass. James Harden can pass, but his game is iso ball. He gets the ball at the top of the key. He wants to take it to the rack. He wants to step back in somebody's face. He is a shoot first, pass second guy, which is completely okay.
Right now.
That's completely acceptable from a point guard, especially one in his position. But my point being, with Steph, he understands that, yes, in this position, he doesn't need to do it all himself. He doesn't need to carry the load himself. But even when these guys aren't playing, when Kevin Durant's not playing, when Klay Thompson's not playing, he still looks to pass unless he has the open shot. And every single time the Warriors have the ball, Steph Curry taking a contested shot is probably about as good as most other guys getting an open look. And he is still looking for the open man. He's still making the extra pass to make sure that his team is better as a whole. If we're talking individual, one-on-one can take it to the rack better, maybe you make the argument for James Harden. But if we're talking better player, better guy to be around on a team, better guy to lead a team to a championship, it is Stephen Curry, and it's not close.
See, I feel like I've got you a little bit coming around to my edge of things because I'm not talking about overall and how they influence the team because Curry may be more even of a team leader, I would even say. I'm talking about the better overall player between the two of them. James Harden is a much better player than Steph Curry, and that's what we're here to debate today. You mentioned how great the percentage is when those other guys aren't on the floor, but Klay Thompson shoots 45.9% for his career. That's absurd. And again, he shoots almost 42% from three for his career.
Yeah.
He's almost as good of a shooter as Steph Curry. Again, he kind of gets dropped below in terms of how much he gets mentioned because they play on such a great team. But Klay Thompson on any other team just about would be a superstar player. Not just a star, but a superstar. Many think that he deserves to go to a place like LA or something, perhaps not now with LeBron there, but either way, you look at Klay as a guy who could really be that next top guy. Because remember, James Harden originally wasn't a superstar player. He was the sixth man coming off the bench for a team that had Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant on it. It took him going to a team without any other perennial superstars on it to become the star he is today. You take Klay off the Warriors, and I make the argument that he could be the next superstar. Steph Curry has been blessed, like I said, to be around all these guys who were so great. You put Harden on Curry's team, and he has just as many rings. You put Harden instead of Curry, so he has just as many rings.
That could be the case, could not be. I'm not sold on that idea because so much of why the Warriors are as good as they are is all about the team chemistry, which everything starts with Steph. But also going back to your point about Klay Thompson, as I mentioned earlier, everybody on the Warriors shoots much worse when Steph Curry is off the floor when he's not playing. Klay Thompson from three, you mentioned he's a 42% career three-point shooter. That's incredible. This year with Stephen Curry, that's 47%. That's unheard of. Ridiculous numbers. But without him, 37%. That's good for just about a little bit more than league average. So that's showing you right there that yes, Klay Thompson is this incredible shooter. You get him open looks, he is going to knock them down. But when you have Steph on the floor, his play gets elevated so much. He is a much different player in that regard. And just to kind of move back to this whole Steph versus Harden argument, one of the things that I know you think Harden does miles and miles better than Steph is take the ball to the rack, right?
Absolutely.
So that's actually not as true as you think it is. So this season, James Harden has gone to the rack on about 24% of his shots, and when he gets there, he's shooting roughly 66%. Steph, on the other hand, he goes to the rack about 18% of the time he shoots the ball, and he's shooting 67%. Now, I'm not going to go and say Steph's a better finisher because he's shooting 1% better on 6% less looks, but that shows you right there that the margin, like the difference between them is not a crazy, crazy difference. In fact, they're pretty comparable in terms of going to the rack.
But you're also, one thing you're forgetting to factor in is that Harden is essentially, he is actually a two guard. He's being forced to play the one with Chris Paul's injury because of the way because there's no one else to take the reins of the one. When Harden when he drives, he usually gets to the free throw line. He averages more free throws per attempts on a drive than any other player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Steph Curry and Harden, one thing they're very different is their frames, I guess you could say. Harden is 6'5" and 240 pounds, much bigger built. Curry's a lot leaner. He's around 6'3" and around 190
and
or so.
Curry's still taking it to the basket in the same level of efficiency, if not more efficient.
But that's my point, though, is Curry is known for this incredible shooting percentage. But, I mean, let me ask you this. James Harden, right now, riding into All-Star break, has done something no other player in the NBA history has done, which is score 30 or more points in now 31 straight games and counting. 509 of those, of the baskets he's made, have been unassisted. Only 72 have been assisted.
Okay.
You're telling me that Curry could do the same thing.
I am. Because listen to me. You're using Curry's team and how good they are as a knock on him. Well, let's use Harden's team and how poor they are without anybody around him.
Tell me when Curry puts up 61 inside of MSG.
Listen to me. He's put up 56 there before he was even an MVP. But my point being, if we're going to say that we have to count that against Steph as the fact that he's got these superstar teammates, then you have to count it against Harden as well that he doesn't right now. He has the ball in his hands every single possession.
He's getting triple teamed almost every time.
Yes, but
Curry has the beauty of having great guys where they don't necessarily double up on him all the time because he can't afford to.
The point is, like, Harden's putting up 30 points. That's incredible. He's scoring a bunch. Like, it's great. However, when you have the ball in your hands as much as he does, if Steph was able to have that free range to do whatever he wanted on the offensive side of the court, he would be putting up the same types of numbers. And what I challenge you with is...
See, that's where I disagree completely.
Okay, but listen, James Harden, it's been an incredible stretch. But we can't sit back and ignore the efficiency. Like, yes, he has been more efficient than you would expect somebody who has scored that much over that much time to do. But at the same time, he's had games. He was 1 of 17 from three a few weeks ago. 1 of 17. He took 17 threes, making one of them, but he continued to chuck up shots. And yes,
Who else is going to score?
He's the best option on that team. I understand
the
that.
only option at many times.
1 of 17 is one of the worst lines that I've ever seen, especially, and we're talking from a superstar MVP candidate.
One game.
Yeah, it's one game, but there have been many games like that. That's the one off the top of my head that I remember very well.
Same. I'm gonna honestly, we're not even gonna take this down a rabbit hole here of another conversation. I don't even think Curry's the best player in his team. I'll be honest with you. I think Kevin Durant is a better player than Steph Curry.
I mean, I just came and I gave you metrics.
Now, I will come in and kind of agree with him a little bit. Kevin Durant has won the Finals MVP over Steph Curry, so that's also another reason to look into.
That is one thing, but you look at the Finals last year. It's the whole thing with how I've seen the Finals MVPs go off in the Warriors run is it's a lot about who's guarding LeBron, who's on LeBron, and LeBron is still going off and still doing these incredible things. But year one, it's Andre Iguodala. He played great defense on LeBron. If you go up and you look at that stat, like at those stats from that series, Stephen Curry is by far the best player on the Warriors in that series. Andre Iguodala wins it because of his incredible defense on LeBron and the fact that he was still offensively involved. However, then you go back, you go to the KD years. The first year, 2 years ago, when KD won his first ring, absolutely, he was the best player in that series. He's the MVP. He deserves it. You look at last year, I don't know if Kevin Durant's the MVP to me. I look at those numbers, I look at those stats. I don't have them on hand for us today, but I distinctly remember Stephen Curry had probably a better series than Kevin Durant, if not very comparable, and it was one game. In Game 4, Steph didn't play that well, and that shot down all of his averages throughout the entire series. If he has that, just an average Stephen Curry game in Game 4, I think he's easily the MVP of the Finals. And yes, so you make these arguments. Kevin Durant's one of the best players in the league. A lot of people would make the argument that he is better than Steph Curry, but here's another thing. Another stat for you.
Also, before you ask this question, I think Curry is probably 4th or 5th, to be honest with you, in overall NBA.
And what? You have James Harden at 1?
I have Harden at 1 right now.
You have Harden at 1, and you have Curry down at 4 or 5.
I have LeBron at 2, KD at 3, probably Curry at 4 or 5.
See, now I'll disagree with you there.
Giannis is there too, but I give Curry because he has the accolades to back it up. Giannis is too young.
Okay. Well, let's get into some advanced stats, and that's my favorite thing to do with Steph Curry is because, yes, you have these stats on paper, and he puts up these really good stats, but these advanced statistics, the advanced metrics are what really sets Steph apart from anybody else. So let's talk about player impact plus minus. For those of you at home that don't know what player impact plus minus is, it's a metric that combines traditional box score values with luck-adjusted player data, and the luck-adjusted data is basically used to adjust factors outside of a player's control, like how well their teammates are shooting the ball. So that puts everybody on a level playing field. Steph has these superstar teammates, but this is a statistic that is used to negate all of that. This is just purely the best players. If we're looking at by year, between Steph Curry and James Harden, Steph has had the better player impact plus minus every single year since 2013. And then, on top of that, in the history of the entire NBA, the 3 best seasons for a player impact plus minus, all of them belong to Steph Curry. He is the best of all time in terms of player impact plus minus. And you can't make these numbers up. These numbers are adjusted so that we can account for the fact that he has these superstar teammates and Harden doesn't.
You know what? I agree with you. Numbers never lie. So let me give you a couple numbers here, talking head-to-head. This is just Harden or Curry. Both have been in the league, same number of seasons at 10. Harden has 1 more All-Star game appearance, 7-6. He has 2 more All-NBA first teams, 4-2. They have the same number of All-NBA teams with 5. The same number of times they were the scoring leader with 1. Harden has, this is the one I really want to emphasize, 1 more time being an assist leader in the whole NBA, which is interesting because he's not a point guard. Curry, on the other hand, is. And yet Harden won being assist leader overall in the NBA one season. Harden has 1 more scoring title awards, which is 1-0. And Curry has 1 more MVP, which is 2-1. That's set to change
One of them being
this
unanimous.
season.
That's not going to change.
Very true.
It's a Giannis year for sure.
Oh, I disagree.
We can get into that at a different time though. But this is my whole point with everything. These flashy stats and everything. Harden might have a bit of the edge, but you look at the advanced metrics. These are the things that really, really tell us how good a player is, and it's Steph by a mile. And also, you mentioned the playoffs. You talked about Steph not getting that Finals MVP. Okay, maybe he hasn't been his best self in the playoffs, but he's damn sure been better than James Harden. across their entire career.
See, now that's something. No, that's not even fair to do because again, now you're factoring in the teams. The Warriors have had pretty much exhibition matches. I mean, you watch the Warriors all the time. You know that the playoffs are not even that challenging for them anymore because of how much better they are as a team.
I'm talking purely from a shooting percentage.
But he's going to get more inflated stats because he has more games than James Harden's had, and we'll get into that too.
If anything, it's harder to sustain those.
I hope you enjoyed up to this year because it's the end of the
Warriors run. It's harder to sustain these stats over however many games more that Steph has played as opposed to Harden. But the numbers about this don't lie. Like, Steph Curry is shooting 3% better just overall than James Harden in the playoffs and 8% better from three. And I understand that's not Harden. Steph's the best shooter of all time. Harden doesn't have that distinction. He's not known for just being a shooter. He takes it to the rack and everything. But then you look at the overall field goal percentage, it's still the advantage to Steph. Yeah, Harden gets to the line. He gets the calls that Steph Curry doesn't. That's a different thing. But still, even if we're talking free throw shooting, Steph's better. He shoots 90%.
But see, your argument works against you in that case because Harden gets the free throw line a lot more, and like you were talking about how more playoffs game actually is going to diminish your average. Harden gets the free throw line almost 25 times a night at this point in this season. So
yeah, which is a whole different thing. Not good for the game of basketball.
But you mentioned the shooting though, and for Steph Curry, who I agree with you, if not already, will be the best shooter of all time. Harden is considered, this ball hog guy who doesn't give it to his teammates. Curry's overall field goal percentage, keep in mind they both played 10 seasons, 478. Harden's is 443. Not that less significant than what Curry has, given that Curry gets all the accolades for being this great shooter and Harden's supposed to be the ball hog. Now, let's compare real quick both of their best seasons. Curry's best season came in 2016 in terms of his points per game. He averaged 30.1 points a game. Harden this year so far is on his best pace, 36.6 points a game. The most rebounds, Curry again, you go back to 2016, 5.4 rebounds a game. Harden, 2017, averaged 8.1 rebounds a game. So now we're talking at least 3 more rebounds a game. You want to go to assist, right? Because Curry is the point guard. He's the guy who's passing the ball around. Curry's best season came in 2014, now 5 years ago, where he averaged 8.5 assists per game. Harden, 2 years ago, for an entire season, averaged 11.2 assists per game. But they call him a ball hog, right?
Well, listen. This is what I say to negate all these assist stats and everything. That's very misleading when it comes to Steph Curry. Because as you said, like Harden has all these guys coming and attracting attention to him. Steph has the same thing. But when he gets the ball so many times, he will have the ball.
That's why the assist is more impressive to me.
No, I understand that. Harden, first of all, though, I make the argument Harden has the ball in his hands.
You or
more
I
than
could go on the
Steph
floor with the
Curry.
Warriors any given night and get 6 or 7 assists at least. Just throw it up there to one of those guys and they'll come down with it.
Perhaps, maybe. But my point being is, like, with all of these guys on the Warriors, Steph isn't the main ball guy. Like, he takes the ball up the court a lot. Draymond Green takes the ball up the court a lot. Kevin Durant does the same thing. Andre Iguodala does the same thing. They have all of these guys that are good with the ball in their hands. So it makes sense that that number is going to be inflated for Harden. When he has the ball, every single possession he is on the court, he's taking the ball up almost every single time. And maybe that's not his natural position, but for all intents and purposes, the way I see it, Harden's a point guard. It doesn't really matter.
He pretty much has to be, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's more necessity out of, like, as opposed to want. But
yeah.
At the same time, when you have the ball in your hands for that, like, you have the ball in your hands that often, then you're going to get a lot of assists. And the thing about the Warriors, the thing about Steph Curry, the thing about the environment that he plays in, playing for Steve Kerr, it is a find the open man at all costs type of team. So Steph has the ball, and he finds a guy, like, he's triple teamed. He finds a guy just to get on his team, whoever's open, whoever he sees, he gets it off to him. They find Klay Thompson in the corner for a wide open 3. That's not an assist that's going to go back to Steph, but that's a play that happened all because of Steph and because the defense gravitates towards him and everything like that. And also, you mentioned this best season argument. I understand the whole looking at the flashy stats, looking at how many points, assists, rebounds per game, but I'm gonna continue to go back to these advanced metrics because I feel, in my opinion, these are the most valuable stats in terms of
either way with it,
evaluating a player. And you look at player efficiency rating. James Harden's having the best year of his career right now, right?
Yeah,
Can't really
so
argue
far,
that.
yeah, no, without a doubt.
Player efficiency rating is
almost 37 a game right now.
29.9. So, first of all, again, player efficiency rating, for those that don't know, it sums up a player's positive accomplishments, subtracts their negative accomplishments, and basically gives a rating of that player's overall performance. James Harden having his best year this year, 29.9 player efficiency rating. That's really, really good. Steph Curry, his best year ever, 32.49. And not only is that Steph's best ever, that is the best that the league has ever seen.
Listen, I love the advanced metrics you're getting into, but I feel like you're really cherry-picking stats here. I mean, I'm giving you the points, rebounds, and even if you go into steals and blocks.
You're looking at the flashy stats, though. Yeah, I understand that. The flashy stats are going to favor Harden because Harden has the ball in his hands so much more.
So in what way is Curry better than Harden? Let me ask you that. Simple as that.
Every
He's not a better
single way.
scorer. He's not a better passer.
How is he not a better scorer?
He's not a better rebounder.
Explain to me how he's not a better scorer, though.
Look at the points per game alone. That's scoring.
Okay, that's different,
And the
though.
different ways he can score,
But
too.
my
Curry
point-
without his shooting is nothing.
That's
Harden,
not true. I just told you how Curry takes it to the rack with incredible efficiency. He has 67%
Better than Harden,
shooting.
though?
Better than Harden, yes, by a
I-
percentage point. And I'm not saying that Curry's a much better finisher than Harden and a much better shooter. They're close in terms of finishing. I will concede. I will give that to James Harden. He's a slightly better finisher than Steph. Even though Steph shoots it at a higher percentage, James is going to the rack
You
more often.
mentioned playoffs. You mentioned playoffs, right? And
Yeah.
That's another criticism that Harden gets is that he in playoffs he collapses, right? I'm sure you've heard that he's a choke artist in the playoffs.
He is.
How about the points per game being higher, 28.6 to 28.3, rebounds per game being higher, 6.7 to 6.2, assists per game in the playoffs is higher, 8.5 to 8.4, steals per game
Sounds
is
like
higher,
you're saying the same
2.4
numbers
to
to
2.
me, like by 0.1, 0.2
Right,
per game.
it's small
Okay.
increments, but my point though is not that it's like that much of a differential because they're very close in the playoffs. We're talking about 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 increments. However, Curry again gets this idea of being such a hero in the playoffs, and Harden gets the idea of who's a ball hawk. He chokes in the playoffs. What part of those numbers? I mean, pretty much 29, 8.5, and 7 a game in the playoffs when you have no one else around you is considered choking.
Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Steph is like the greatest in the playoffs because I've heard a lot in my day. I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steph doesn't have the best reputation in the playoffs either. He and Harden are both better than they're given credit for when it comes postseason
By a
time.
mile.
But as you just mentioned, all of those stats, they're basically the same thing to me. Maybe Harden's averaging 0.3 more
It's
points
very
per
close.
game.
It's
It's
very
basically
close.
they're as far
It's
as
more
I'm
the narrative
concerned-
that's behind it that's
No,
what I'm
absolutely.
arguing against.
It's absolutely. But then, like I said, you look at the efficiency, you look at the field goal percentages, you look at all of that. It's still the advantage goes to Steph. And I don't see, maybe Harden's got a half a point per game more, but I will take Steph's half a point per game less with 8% better three-point shooting, 5% better field goal percentage overall.
One last thing I will say this, keeping things current, talking about 2019, Harden right now going into All-Star break, obviously just had All-Star break, maybe he's going to start up again the second half of the season, 36.6 points a game, 7.7 assists, 6.7 rebounds. Curry, a significant amount less in almost all three of those categories, 28.6 points, 5.2 assists, 5.1 rebounds. Harden's doing better with less around him. You cannot argue this year right now.
No,
Harden
listen,
is the MVP.
I'm not going to argue that. Well, first of all, I'm not going to argue that Steph should be the MVP over Harden this year.
Many would, though.
But what I will argue is James Harden should be MVP of the league. But we can get into that at a different time, as I've said.
Well, let's
but
talk
my
about
point,
the-
hold on. My point real quick. My point with all of this is Steph Curry, he's on this great team, right? He's on the best team in the league, maybe the best ever, which I'm sure we'll talk about real
90s
soon.
Bulls, my man.
But listen, Steph Curry doesn't play the same amount of minutes that James Harden does. James Harden's
true.
averaging these more minutes per game. He's on the court basically all 12 minutes of the fourth
Yeah.
quarter, whereas Steph's usually with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Steph's night's over. He's getting iced up. He's just got a towel around his neck. He's just chilling.
I agree. My point is that if they were in opposite roles, like you had to trade them opposite teams, I
Yeah.
think that Harden would put up close to what he's putting up now. I think Curry, you would finally see almost not exposed because he's a great player, but you would see significantly that he has been blessed with so many guys around him now that without them he cannot win on his
Okay,
own.
but listen,
Harden is keeping the Rockets above
That's not
500 on
true,
his own, though.
But listen, the first year that the Warriors won the championship, right, 2014, 2015, you know who the second highest scoring player on that team was?
Was it-
Jarrett Jack.
Yeah.
You know Jarrett Jack? You know what
Yeah.
he's doing now?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He is not a good player. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. He was never an All-Star. They had Klay Thompson,
He's a
but
role
that
player
was
at best.
that was before Klay Thompson was the real Klay Thompson, the player that he is today. Jarrett Jack was the second best player on that team, and they beat LeBron James in the championship. He took them there, and he got them there, and he won with them there, and he was the best player in that final
So
series.
this year in June, when the Rockets win it all, then your argument's over, right? Because we were going to talk about that. I think that you might have a little amnesia or something because you seem to be forgetting what happened last year in the playoffs. If CP3 hadn't gotten hurt in that playoff series, the Warriors wouldn't have won.
Listen,
it was 3-2. Am I wrong?
if Andre Iguodala didn't get hurt in Game 3,
so
it's
you're
over
saying
in 5.
Andre Iguodala
I'm not
is
listening. No,
important
I
to
am
Chris
not
Paul.
saying that Andre
Come on,
Iguodala
get
is
outta
as
here.
important as Chris Paul. But the point that I'm making is Andre Iguodala is an integral part of that team come playoff time. You cannot make that argument.
He absolutely is,
The
but not as
Warriors
much as
pay him
Chris
for
Paul.
16 games a year. Yeah, I'm not saying it's as much as Chris Paul. Andre Iguodala gets hurt in Game 3, he's done for the series. That's it. Chris Paul gets hurt, what, late game 5?
Yeah.
So they're without him for 2 games. They're without Andre
The two most
Iguodala
pivotal
for
games,
4.
the games they could have closed it
Sure,
out.
I understand that, absolutely. But my point being, it never would have gotten to that point if Andre
Oh,
Iguodala was on the
come
floor.
Okay,
It
before we
wouldn't have.
get too much into the postseason, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about who the Warriors, who their biggest competition is in the playoffs. We'll be right back with more. Like, how much time do you want